Welcome to today's explainer. I am so incredibly excited to unpack this piece of modern digital literature with you. Today we're going to do a deeply serious academic deconstruction of an incredibly brief yet highly relatable internet moment. Sometimes the absolute most profound reflections on the human condition, they aren't found in thick encyclopedias. They're encoded in these fleeting, bite-sized fragments of our daily digital feeds. So today, we're taking a magnifying glass to a single, profound string of text that perfectly captures a universal modern struggle. Here is our foundational text for this explainer. Read it with me and really let the gravity of these words settle in. When the alarm clock wins, TikTok, 4K memes, hashtag shorts. Just sit with that. In just 9 words, 1 number, an emoji, and a few little pieces of punctuation, the author has painted a literally devastating portrait of human vulnerability, technological dominance, and our collective coping mechanisms. We're going to tear this string apart piece by piece to understand exactly how it works.
Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1, the morning defeat.
We start with the very first semantic chunk of our text. That opening clause, when the alarm clock wins, sets an immediate, highly dramatic scene. It establishes a conflict that literally every single person watching this explainer has experienced. We aren't just waking up, we are entering an arena. Notice the specific phrasing here. It doesn't say when you oversleep or when the alarm goes off. Nope. It says when the alarm clock wins. That framing is absolutely crucial, because by establishing a paradigm of winning, the text inherently implies there's a loser. And that loser? Well, it's human ambition. The simple act of trying to wake up early, maybe to work out, to study, to get a jump on the day, is positioned right up against this inevitable surrender to sleep. The alarm clock doesn't just function, it achieves a total victory over our willpower. Let's move to and see how this builds in Part 2, Visualizing the Enemy. The text abruptly transitions from the written word right to a powerful visual punctuation mark, the alarm clock emoji. The author doesn't just leave us with this abstract concept of a victorious clock. No, they force us to look the enemy right in the face. It sits right in the middle of our text, completely shifting the tone. You're reading along, processing this narrative of defeat, and then suddenly, boom, immediate visual recognition. That single red icon acts as a visual anchor. It stops the reader dead in their tracks, kind of like how the actual physical object stops our sleep. It brilliantly bridges the gap between the abstract concept of time and that physical, stress-inducing object sitting right there on your nightstand.
Within the context of our source text, the alarm clock is explicitly defined as the antagonist. It is a relentless, entirely unfeeling machine whose sole purpose in life is to disrupt your peace. In this narrative framework, the alarm clock is the undefeated heavyweight champion of the morning routine. It doesn't negotiate, it doesn't feel pity, it simply rings until it wins. And as our text implies, its victory represents our harsh, often completely unwanted return to waking reality.
And this brilliantly illustrates Part 3, the scale of memes.
Right here, the text pivots from an intensely personal defeat to a massive collective experience. Look at this staggering figure, isolated from the text: 4,000. The source explicitly promises 4K memes. We are not talking about a single joke here or a passing thought about oversleeping. No way. The text points to a massive, overwhelming archive of shared cultural pain. That number, 4,000, transforms a solitary morning failure into an industrial-scale phenomenon. It tells the reader directly, your defeat is not unique. It's been documented and memed thousands of times over.
If we visualize the sheer density of what's being offered in those parentheses, it's actually almost comical. 4K memes represents an absolute avalanche of content. The text suggests a curated library of human failures so incredibly dense that it requires the numerical shorthand 4K. It's a high-definition, high-volume coping mechanism. It essentially suggests that the only way we can possibly process the daily victory of the alarm clock is by consuming an overwhelmingly disproportionate amount of memes about it.
Let's break down the structural choice going on here. On one side, we have the core text. When the alarm clock wins, this is the event, the tragedy itself. On the other side, tucked into parentheses, almost like a casual aside, is the cultural scale, 4K memes. By placing this massive data point in brackets, the author treats the monumental scale of 4,000 memes as secondary, almost expected information. It highlights this truly fascinating reality. We casually compress massive cultural reactions into tiny parenthetical spaces, right next to our everyday failures.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is Part 4, Anatomy of a Short.
This final, critical formatting tag dictates the entire medium of delivery. The hashtag shorts isn't just a label, it's literally the architectural blueprint for the entire message. Everything we've just unpacked, the defeat, the antagonist, the massive archive of memes, is ultimately bound by the strict laws of this final word. The inclusion of this specific hashtag tells us exactly how this epic saga of human defeat and 4,000 memes is meant to be consumed. It changes the text from a simple statement into a highly engineered beacon, perfectly designed for algorithmic pickup.
The shorts designation imposes some very strict structural requirements on the source material. It means those 4K memes about the alarm clock winning, they're not meant to be studied at length. They absolutely must be presented in a vertical format engineered for rapid, bite-sized consumption and optimized for relentless algorithmic distribution. The hashtag forces this fast-paced, visually arresting delivery system onto a narrative that is fundamentally about waking up slowly and failing. It is a brilliant juxtaposition of slow morning failure and hyper-fast digital consumption. So the crucial point is that this entire 10-word string represents a rapid, highly calculated sequence of viewer actions. Step 1, the viewer sees the relatable text, instantly identifying with the defeat. Step 2, the visual processing of the alarm clock emoji triggers the physical, emotional memory of waking up. Step 3, the promise of consuming 4K memes offers the dopamine hit of shared humor. And finally, Step 4, the shorts tag ensures that once the consumption is done, the user will seamlessly, mindlessly swipe to the next piece of content. It is a perfectly engineered closed loop. Which brings us to the ultimate conclusion of our analysis today. We've seen exactly how this tiny string of text maps out our daily surrender, visualizes our worst enemy, and categorizes our collective digital coping mechanisms. But it leaves us with a lingering, deeply provocative thought. If the alarm clock is established as the absolute victor, and our only response is to rapidly scroll through an endless, algorithmically generated feed of 4,000 memes about our own defeat, who is really in control of our mornings? Think about that the next time you hit snooze. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope this completely changes how you view the architecture of your digital feed.